Hello everybody and welcome to Lush and Salty Aquariums. This is Stefan. Thank you so much for coming to my channel. So as I move into the third year of my fish room here in Chicago, sort of the Lush and Salty 2.0, because when I was in California I had the first iteration of this fish room, I have learned that tanks, unless you purposefully intervene in a big way, they do change and evolve over time, and you sort of roll with it. And that's just one of the many sort of fascinating, sometimes heartbreaking, always interesting facets of this hobby. And so I'm focusing here on a 12-gallon planted aquarium. I was gonna say something else, because when I first set this up, it was a Blackwater, and I started calling it a partial Blackwater because of my affinity for putting a lot of plants in the aquarium, which means a true heavily stained and dark system would not be suitable for most plants. And I compromised, and the tank sort of, it fought back a little bit at times. You know, things got better and then they got worse and then they got better in terms of trying to maintain even a partial biotope. What you're looking at now is it only resembles a Blackwater system, and part of that's due to the awesome light screen in the back that gives the illusion of tea-colored water. But rest assured, you know, that's a wonderful light screen by UNS, the Atmos, and a great toy. It's not a need to have, it's a nice to have. But rest assured, as I was going to say, this water is basically crystal clear. It's, I mean, I have botanicals in here, a few pieces of leaves here and there, and some alder cones. There's a really neat, fun cave there. I had put these little natural caves in here because early on there was a population of licorice gouramis. I haven't seen them in a while, but they've been in here a couple of 3 years, and I hadn't lost any. I think I had a trio down from 5, and the first 2 perished early on, and the remaining 3 were fine. What was heartbreaking though is, you know, the neon tetras became very big and grew quite fast, especially because I was feeding so many live foods, and I'm looking at one right there, and they're jumbos. But they started to weaken and die one by one, just sort of got ill or weak, and I culled the ones that were struggling, and now there's only like a few left. And so that's what I meant by heartbreaking, I suppose. I don't know how long a neon tetra is supposed to live. I gave them their best life, and there's still a few in here living their best life. However, as is very obvious, there's new fish in here, which is the opposite of heartbreaking. That's, you know, what we love so much is in introducing new creatures. And there are 2 new creatures in here, a group of Illuminatus, the red neon, the red blue-eyed neon, gosh, I even looked it up so I wouldn't mess up saying it, but it's the Pseudomagil Illuminatus, and that's not that there. That is actually a pencilfish, and while it's not showing the red, it is supposedly a coral red pencilfish. And there's the Illuminatus with those wonderful little flippity fins. There's a number of them in here, and I thought a small nano fish that likes a more subdued, lighted tank, and even for the potential to spawn, that they would be a wonderful candidate for this system. And you can see they're definitely feisty in terms of how they interact with these pencilfish, which pencil fish usually are much more docile than the ones I'm looking at right here. So new behavior for me. I've got pencil fish in a lot of aquariums, and I don't tend to see them this active. And I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but it's a fun thing because it's different than the way they interact in my other aquariums where they're much more docile. Now these fish, and not all fish do this, but when I get close to this tank they get very excited, and some fish don't, and many do, and these do. Now I fed them quite readily earlier on, and I don't intend to do that anymore. This is an evening video, and the lights will go out shortly. They're of course all on timers. So the Illuminatus is a common and beloved pseudomugil. I bet a lot of you have them or have had them. And those of you who breed fish know that of the egg layers, these are considered a fairly easy fish to spawn, but their fry are minute, and you have to take care if you realistically want to raise them up. They need their own little grow out. And while the fry would be really happy to figure that out up in here, and I'm so delighted with what the immersed plants plus the floating plants, and just below the surface the Brazilian pennywort, that would be an ideal cover for baby fish. But because there's so many micro predators in here, to say nothing of what's left of the monster submarine neons, they don't stand a chance. Plus I'm not going to pump a bunch of infusoria into this tank to try to maintain a teeny tiny sliver of a fry that doesn't have a prayer anyway. I did buy a mop just for shits and giggles, as one of my daughters likes to say, and I could put that in there and see if I get eggs, because there's like 12 pseudomugil in here, males and females, and they do have a fondness for spawning in mops, and I could give that a go. Mostly, you know, I could create an impromptu hatchery and do all the things, and I might, because you know I've got some pleco fry growing out in something I DIY'd to accommodate them, because there's no way I was going to have 50 plus pleco fry in any of my tanks, and so I immediately took them out when they started to be free swimmers, and just drained the cave and put them in a Tupperware with a heater and an air stone and some leaves, and that's happening in another aquarium. And I could do something similar with, you know, anything in my fish room, but I've got my eye on the Illuminatus. There you can see the red and the neon and the blue, hence their name. And then of course these coral red, which aren't showing, you know, nearly the red I was expecting. I think they're sort of tank raised. It's dubious. I'm pretty sure they're not Bexford imposters, but I'm not seeing a lot of red. I did see some in the bags when I picked them up at the swap, so I'm not giving up. It's a nice frontal shot of this aquarium. So much different than the last time I filmed it, where the neons were predominant, and now they're a minority and getting smaller. But those coral, those pencil fish are going crazy, you know. Honestly, I've got pencil fish in a lot of my tanks, and I've not seen that sort of intense behavior. This green lotus has been occupying the right-hand side of this tank for at least 2 years. It hasn't died back. The various pothos plants are all tangled and forming a network along the back and down through the front. And if I pull back, you can see how wonderfully it frames the tank. I got some rocks and things just basically creating a frame, a still life with a complete life in between. So still life's the wrong term, I beg your pardon. There's anything but stillness with all this life. But still, there's a serenity. I mean, especially with that light and the silhouette of the pothos roots and the Brazilian pennywort just kind of draping down. And a really healthy group of Anubias. That, by the way, is Cryptparva. I did use an aqua soil with some gravel. It's pretty much coalesced into an organic mixture of its own sort of creation, using all the botanicals that have degraded and dead plant matter and whatever else on top of the aqua soil and gravel. I only run the smallest hang on back here, and I clean the floss about every other day, and then I haven't touched the biomedia until I stop getting flow, or when the flow is seriously compromised, I'll take the entire filter off and just give it a clean and, you know, shake out the biomedia and tank water and replace the floss and clean out the filter, just clean the plastic and put it back together. It's a $20 device. I don't need a lot of flow, don't need a lot of filtration for this tank, but I do believe in filtration. I don't trust an aquarium all by itself. I respect those of you who are able to pull it off, but I don't have the cojones to do that. But this is basically entry level. I mean, it doesn't get any more simple than that HOB, and there's a bunch of them online and they're all around the same price. Just look for Nano hang-on back filters. I don't think you have to choose one brand over the other, honestly. I use Azoo, I think it's AZOO, so you could start there. I really like how the Cryptparva has stayed consistent in forming sort of a very natural carpet, in the sense that it's not a true carpet, but it's ubiquitous at the substrate level. I like that, and it doesn't seem to be bothered when I throw in botanicals that might cover it up. There's a giant mystery snail, so that's proof that the acidity in this tank is not nearly what it used to be, or else this mystery snail's shell would quickly begin to degrade, and it looks pretty sweet to me. And that gold color, such a compliment to the light that's kicking from the back. The light I have up here is an entry-level Chihiros, and Chihiros is my favorite light by far, but this light doesn't have the it has full spectrum, but you can't control the reds, so it's not an RGB per se. It's a lot less money, and for a tank like this, it's perfectly and even better than adequate, but it's not the light to get if you want explosive color. That's the RGB Slim or any of their higher end lights. They are incredible. Looks like there's another mystery snail in there as well, so they're doing fine. I see him every day working really hard, and I'm glad he's gold, because that's a color motif in this aquarium. This tank is one of the few currently that has the dreaded Malaysian trumpet snail. That's this guy right there. I don't like those snails, but I mean, when you have only a few, which is like saying, you know, if you see one, there's probably 50 more. I get that, but I don't see 50 more. And ever, I see several, and if food falls to the bottom, then I get a sense of the horde. But it is what it is. It's a high-class problem. I don't mind snails unless they dominate, then I just catch them out, and there's all kinds of ways to trap them that are fairly effective. And of course, it's less feeding is the best way to start, rather than try to fight the problem. just mitigated from Jump Street. Now you see two all of a sudden. I can pull those two, and maybe I will, and maybe I won't. Alright everybody, I just wanted to share the changes to this aquarium, which for me have been considerable, and yet much has stayed the same, the look and the feel. If you have any questions, by all means hit me up. I'm delighted to answer all, and I beg your pardon for the reflection. As always folks, keep your hands in the tank, albeit carefully, and ciao for now.